Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Hope you've all had a wonderful day, evening, afternoon, whatever. So today for this piece I wanted to talk about a little more in depth about how I color, how I shade, and how I finally I guess render a nicely painted piece such as this one. So when I lay down my colors, what I first do is I select, let me back up. I'll do a sketch, and I mean a really rough sketch. I don't know if I can find a picture, but if I do, I'll put it on the screen. But I'll just really roughly put out the shapes that I want, slowly refine and erase, and it's not clean, it's pretty dirty, messy. And I'll refine it until I get to pretty close to the shape I want for all my lines, until they're like thinner and thinner. Then I take a really nice inking brush in Photoshop, and there's no stabilizer. I just nicely, slowly ink on my lines. And sometimes I don't. Sometimes I like to keep the rougher lines. I think that they have a bit more character, emotion, and animation to them. So once that's done, I will then select everything outside those lines, invert it so it's getting just the figure, put one color down, and then I will take probably the largest color. In this case it was her skin. I'll color everything that is that color first and make it a clipped layer to the base layer, and then I keep going. I'm putting new layers underneath it so that every time I will paint, it doesn't get to where I've already painted, drawn, colored. And then once everything is nice, I merge all the layers together so all the colors are on one layer. Then I'll go to my another clipped layer or another masked layer, and I do a multiply layer, which is a color blending option. I think it's also in Procreate if you're not aware. But this makes the color incredibly dark, and it's really nice for shadows. But what I do is I'll take, I think in this case for Selma here, I took a nice purple, like a cool purple, and I simply put, again, pretty messily, everywhere where I wanted a shadow to be. Then I took my eraser and I kind of just carved away until I got all my shadows to be pretty much where I want them to be. But rather than leave it like that, I will then lock the layer so I can't draw outside of where I've already drawn. I then take a darker color, like a dark blue, and I'll darken up some of the shadows in areas where naturally it would be darker. So that would be like right underneath her chin, in her armpit, in her sleeve, any like folds of her dress or anything. And then lastly, I'll take like either a pink or a red, something nice and warm, and I'll put it on the very edges of some of the shadows where there wouldn't be as much shadow, so it kind of lightens it up. This I used a lot on the arm that's on her hip, because I still wanted it to be dark, but I definitely didn't want it to be just entirely in shadow. Once that was done, I then made another clipping layer, and then I used the overlay blending mode. This kind of makes everything bright and still saturated, so it makes highlighting things look really like bright, and it pops really nicely. So typically I use, depending on the lighting, I use a pale yellow. That way it's not like super yellow, but you can still recognize it as like sunlight or a light flashing down. And I'm not as messy when I do this layer. I typically just do little highlights, little like hashing lines, and then erase a little bit to make it blend a little nicer. Sometimes I'll go even closer to white if I really want a good highlight, especially for the eyes. erase and go back and forth until I like it. Maybe add another layer. I've definitely done another overlay layer where I'll do a really soft brush and do almost a gradient over the top of the body toward the bottom, so that there's this nice bit of brightness toward the top of the face. Usually that works nicely. Then what I do is, after I've got everything in place and I know I want it, I will save it as another file just in case I mess it up. Then I merge everything onto one single layer and then I start painting. But what that typically means is taking a texture brush and just kind of blending everything so that all the colors kind of meld together and nothing looks like rough or deliberate. Everything looks, I don't want to say natural, but you know, it looks nice. The more planning that you do beforehand, I will say, the less time it will take when you start to render everything. It's good to get references and it's good to plan, so don't hesitate in taking your time to do this. Let the painting be the fun part of just homogenizing everything. Do your work beforehand. Trust me when I say it's absolutely worth it. Sometimes also, once I'm done, I'll take another multiply layer and just generally darken up some areas with a very soft, like low opacity brush, and just add like a little bit of sparkle here and there, like any finishing touches. But that's pretty much it. There's not much to it. Sometimes I do other little niche things, but it kind of depends on what piece I'm doing. So that being said, if you do have any questions about this or any other questions in general, please leave me a comment. I would love to read some. Captain Domcopter? I mean, that's a nice painting, right? Really good. But can you draw a pumpkin? This is where true mastery is shown. Alright, hold on. You want a pumpkin? I'll draw you a pumpkin. Just give me a minute. Give Photoshop a minute. Draw you the best heckin' pumpkin you've ever seen. We stand pumpkin in this house.